The first concept, which has helped me a lot, is called love languages. This is how you feel loved. Everybody feels loved in different ways. Some people like to be touched more. Some people like to be complimented more. Some people like gifts. And there is something coined by the author Gary Chapman called love languages. And there's a few main, I think there's five main ones, and there are a few subcategories. But if you learn what your love languages are, you'll be able to communicate that to your partner, to your spouse, to your loved ones. And equally, if you learn about love languages, you'll be able to learn about how to please your partner or your children or whoever it might be. Because feeling loved is not just romantic love, it's also family love. And also, you might notice it with your friends as well. And it's helped me quite a lot in my marriage. So, the first concept is love languages. I encourage you to buy Gary Chapman's book if you can, or listen to it on Audible. It is a fantastic read. I read it many, many, many years ago, probably 15 years ago. I read it when it came out, and it changed my life, and I think it's amazing. So, love languages. The second concept is called communication styles. Now, I don't remember where I read this. I might not have even read it. I might have heard it. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments. Communication styles is how we like to communicate. So similar to love languages, but on communication. And the four main styles that um, I understand are readers and writers, or speakers and listeners. So some people much prefer to have a conversation, a phone call, a meeting. Other people like to read an email or write an email or write a text message, etc. And there's plenty of people that are somewhere in between. But if you know what you are, then you will understand how you work best, both in employment and with family and with friends. And you can design your life in a way, and you can choose jobs, and you can choose partners and whatnot, um, and interact with people in a better way by understanding how you communicate. So communication styles. I'm a writer and a reader, even though I'm speaking to you guys on YouTube. I do think it's a good platform, so that's why I do that. Um, another concept or model is to think about how introverted or extroverted you are. I think that can help you to understand how to regenerate your own energy. So understanding how introverted or extroverted is another really important concept, I would say. And there are various tests you can do online. There are different personality structures that I'm not going to recommend any specific one here, but I think it helped me to understand that I float towards introversion. I think I'm more of an ambivert, which is someone who's both, but I think I am slightly more introverted than extroverted. Another way you can know how introverted or extroverted you are is how you gain energy. My wife is very quiet, so people assume that she's an introvert, yet she gets energy from being around people. That means she's an extrovert. Whereas myself, I'm talkative, but I get tired very easily when I'm on camera or when I'm with friends. And I gain energy by being alone, reading or generally being by myself. And that is a classic introversion or sign of introversion. So that's one way you can think about it, and that's the way I think about it anyway. The next concept is peak performance hours. So you might have heard the term night owl, people that are perform better at night, or early birds, people that perform better in the morning. That simplifies the matter. What I think is best is if you think about track a week or track a month or track a day even, and like when do you perform at your best, both in terms of work and also, family or whatever else, whatever goals that you actually have. There might be sport goals, there might be business goals, there might be career goals, whatever. But understanding how and when you perform, this can change over time. Maybe when you're younger, you perform better at night, or whatever. So it's not fixed. And indeed, you can do this. You can look at this, know yourself video if you like every 10 years and see how you've changed. But peak performance hours is the fourth concept. The fifth concept is routines. What routines help you to get better performance or better outcomes for your particular life? That might be as simple as, what are your routines to get a raise? Or it might be, what are your routines to be a better friend to your best friend, or a better son, or a better father, whatever. But what are those routines that help you? For me, I've really benefited from cold showers. I think they get me out of funks. They lower my inflammation. I feel refreshed. I feel in a better mood after a cold shower. So that's one routine I've adopted, and I've been doing cold showers since about 2015. So at the time of filming, nearly 10 years of cold showers. What other routines help you? I'm sure there'll be some in there. The others are habits. I think you can differentiate habits as being um, automatic, whereas routines you have to still try to get into a routine. Maybe routines become habits. I don't know. But what habits do you have? What habits do you think are productive? What habits do you think are non-productive? What habits do you think, when I say productive, I mean you decide what you decide how you define productivity. It might be that you have a habit of playing computer games, but you really enjoy it. It's not necessarily productive in the economic sense, but you feel it's maybe you want to do more gaming and you enjoy gaming and you've got, I don't know, a YouTube channel about gaming. So that might be productivity defined by you, but for somebody else, maybe gaming for hours every day isn't productive. So you define your habits and whether they're productive or non-productive. Um, so that's the next one. I should probably be counting these. All right, the seventh concept is identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And I think this is super important. It's quite hard, if somebody asks you what your strengths and weaknesses are, if you haven't like thought about it, you might not know. I have gone through many exercises of thinking about my strengths and weaknesses over the years because I come from a freelance contracting background. It's often what I've been asked in interviews. And I also have conversations with my wife about what we think both our strengths and weaknesses are. And how do you discover what your strengths and weaknesses are? Well, if you're young, I think it's partially about trying lots of different things and seeing what comes naturally, what you're good at, what you enjoy. But also another frame of reference for identifying strengths and weaknesses is finding where you get compliments from. And it's not just like one compliment. It's I would say it's the volume of compliments. So, and also the strength of the compliment. So if somebody is like, wow, you're so good at X, Y, Z. Um, and also people you don't know. So strangers think you're good at it. So I've got a YouTube channel about investment analysis, and people think that I'm good at analyzing things and finding patterns. And, if somebody sees one of my videos, across the world and they're in China, but they speak English or understand English, they may also think that that's one of my strengths. And that's another way to test strengths and weaknesses is to do something in a way to show it to a lot of people, to get distribution. You can do that on social media quite easily now. You can write a post or create a video or create something that demonstrates a skill. And if people resonate with it and you have a lot of comments or whatever, or if you have people where the strength of that reaction is, wow, you're so good at this. And they're not, I don't think it's that helpful to hear it from friends particularly. But if it's still valuable to hear it from friends because it can allow you to push in that direction of your strength. So that's strengths and weaknesses. The next thing is what makes you feel stressed. And, some people call this triggers. So what are your stress triggers? And it's important to find these out and to write these down so that you can know yourself better, but also you can communicate this with your loved ones, with your wife, your husband, your parents, your children. And you can say, doing X, Y, Z, really stresses me out. And, let's try and find ways to cope with that. They may be patterns, things like it stresses me out when someone does X, Y, Z. So that's someone else. But I think it's also really important to think about your own internal stresses that are not dependent on other people. What do I mean by that? So I'm light dependent. Sorry, I'm light sensitive. So bright lights stress me out. Now that has nothing to do with necessarily with what other people do, unless they're turning on lots of bright lights. Um, but it's an important universal kind of truth about me that it's a stressor. Another thing that's particular about me, which maybe isn't for other people, is I'm also audio sensitive, so I can hear. I have an incredibly sensitive ears, which means I can hear lots of different things down the road when the windows are closed, and I can hear plugs occasionally and chargers and lights and crazy things like that. And it stresses me out. So, but it's really important to know that about yourself. What are your things? And it doesn't matter if they're weird. Some people might find it weird that I can hear um, computers buzzing and some plugs and shit like that. Um, Actually, I had a interesting story. My wife was having a conversation with her parents in another room, just not many meters away, maybe 5 meters away, and I could, when there was no traffic, I could hear their conversation. She was quite impressed by that. It's really annoying having good hearing, by the way, because most of the time you're hearing things you don't want to hear. So it's not something. That's why I put it under a stress. One of the things that makes me stress and not a strength. I'm actively trying to reduce my audio sensitivity, so I listen to loud music because I don't want to have such good hearing. So anyway, less about me, about you. What makes you stressed? So define it by without other people. That's why light and audio things. So without other people, what makes you stressed? And then you can also think about other people. So what behavior patterns of other people make you feel stressed? And, I think that's an activity unto itself. You can probably spend, a certain amount of time just writing down those things. You can have a little spreadsheet if you like spreadsheets, or you can have a list if you like lists, or you can talk to a counselor or people about that. Just trying to go through that. Um, and you can know, very much you can know yourself just by you can learn so much about yourself and your family. Turns out my second cousin is also very audio sensitive, and yeah, we had a joke about that when I found out a few months ago. Next thing is how can you manage stress? I haven't got a structure or a model for that because everyone's different. But the way to think about it for if you want, I guess, a tip on this is if you have been triggered by stress in some experience in the past, how did you cope with it? So, of course, if you're light sensitive, you can turn off a light. But if it's something where you can't control the outcome, so you can't control the input. So let's say, like for me, for example, if I'm at a show or an exhibition or whatever, and there's bright lights, I can't control that. I can't tell them to turn down the lights. It's not within my control. So how do I manage stress? Well, I might do like an internal meditation, um, or I might try and eat the right foods. That sometimes reduces my stress, but it's very much particular to your situation, what your stresses are and how, and it's test and learn really. It's trial and error of like trying different things that can reduce stress. I'm not going to go on and on about all the different ways that you can reduce stress, but I will mention a couple. For me, meditation is like number one, like, day meditation, night meditation, being cognitive of, your internal stress, your body, how you feel, etc. Like that's pretty big. You can actually control a lot of different reactions within your body and mind if you get good at meditation. Anyway, reactions. So you've got stresses, right? There are everyday stresses in that are you can't get rid of some of them. I can't stop the light shining in to my bedroom because I'm light sensitive, but I can get Um, I can get light, what they called, I think they're called light cancelling curtains. Sorry, they're not called light cancelling, they're called blackout curtains. There we go. So how can you manage stress then? That's just one example, but there might be lots of different ways. And because humans are so kind of differentiated and so unique, what works for you won't work for might not work for other people. So it's really important to, I guess, know yourself and try and an exercise you can do is kind of write down when you felt stress once. Maybe it was an experience, maybe it was just a general thing that always seems to stress you out. You might have that if you've done the exercise on what makes you stress. How have you coped? What's the best thing that you've coped? So for me, like I'm noise sensitive, so when going on the London Underground, it's very stressful. So I bought noise cancelling headphones from Bose, and they've been very good for me. So like, yeah, how can you manage stresses? It might be also be, interpersonal. So we talked about, the individual stresses, but what about the interpersonal stuff as well? You know, what types of people frustrate you? What types of interactions frustrate you? How do you deal with that? Um, and this has really helped in my marriage. I mean, every marriage is difficult, I believe. People don't talk about it, but I think marriages are really, really tricky to combine two people into a long-term commitment. And learning how to manage reactions is really important, and learning how to communicate as well. Um, okay, anyway, how do you react to wins and losses? So sometimes in life you get something that goes really, really well. Um, how do you react to that? A friend, an old friend came into some money. Can't remember how, and I think it might have been a small win on the lottery actually, but I can't remember. It was years ago. But I just remember how he reacted because he told me that him and his brother shared this windfall. I think it was 80,000 at the time, which was 20, 30 years ago. So it was a lot of money at the time. And he said that he just went on holidays and, drank it away and gambled it away. And, that's an extreme kind of story, but how do you react to wins? Do you have a process, do you have like a way of celebrating in a healthy way, that you define as healthy, obviously, not me. How do you react to losses? Everyone comes across losses in life, whether it's redundancy, whether it's, people passing away and animals passing away, whatever it might be. How do you cope with losses, and can you find a way to better cope with losses because they're inevitable? So are wins as well. You would hope. Everyone has mini or major wins or mini or major losses throughout life. So you can write down how you previously coped with wins and losses, and how you hope to in the future. You can use that as an exercise to improve how you deal with some of the wins and losses, ups and downs of life, if you like. Um, okay, what have you learned from your upbringing? It's a really pivotal time of your life, growing up and your childhood and adolescence, your teens, etc., even your early 20s. What did you learn from that? And I think it's for me, and I'm a new parent, so it's fascinating to think about how my childhood, I grew up in a near the chocolate factory in Bournville in England, and fascinating how different life is now compared to when I grew up in the 1980s and 90s. And how how you were treated by your parents and the culture and the life, how things were at that time. I think it's really important to reflect on that and what have you learned from it. How has the world changed, and how, you can learn quite a lot from just thinking about that. You can also write these things down as well. Um, so I'm about halfway through now. I mean, there's quite a bit here. I spent a bit of time thinking about this. Actually, it kind of came quickly to me, so it wasn't too long, maybe about half an hour to jot these things down. But anyway, what do you know about your parents? What do you really know about them? Where did they go to school? What was their first job? What was their first love? When did they have their first kiss? Who do they respect? What's their favorite band? How do they react to stress? What's their love languages? You can pretty much do all of this process with your parents. What do you know about them? And if you don't know, if you've got the opportunity to ask, I recommend asking early because um, often there's neurological decline with age, sadly. And if you don't ask now, when are you going to ask? If that makes sense. And if they've already passed, then have a think about, is there any documentation that you can go over? Are there any photos, or are there any people you can speak to find out about your parents? What do you know about your family tree? Um, I'm quite interested in my family tree. I've been interested for over a decade now. I know that on my father's side, my grandfather was a world famous inventor, physicist, genius of geniuses. Was a quote from the professor of physics at Imperial, who was his the chap that came after him in the physics department. My grandfather was professor of physics at Imperial College London for decades. And he had a really interesting story, self-taught, you know, across lots of different things, subparticle physics and solar energy and holograms and photography and telescopes and just crazy, loads of just amazing things, invented things. Apparently, I was told by this professor at Imperial, his student who went on to become Robin, I think his name was. Is it Robin Smith? I don't know. He said that that my grandfather invented double glazing. He did some work with Pilkington glass, and he helped his student invent camera lenses, and helped the king of solar in America with work on solar energy. My grandfather wasn't big on big on accolades and whatnot, even though he eventually got into the FRS, the Royal Society. Anyway, it's really interesting to find out about your family. Maybe not everyone is, in my family is not as impressive as Walter was, but my grandfather. But I think everyone has their own story. I think everyone is impressive in their own ways. My other grandfather survived Stalin and Hitler and was in a work camp or a death camp in Siberia, survived it. Even, and there's loads of stories, maybe somebody, you don't necessarily have to have had fantastical stories like that. Um, my grandmother on my mother's side we don't know much about her. She died when she was very young, but I don't think she was it's hard to know. But if you don't think about your family tree, if you don't ask people, then you won't know. All the things I've learned through asking people. I mean, with Walter, it's a bit different because he's on Google and you can kind of find out through that. But you know, it's important to learn about your family tree. Ask your cousins and anyone in your family. You can ask them about the things that you've gone through here. Do these things make you stress? The only reason I know that my audio sensitivity could be genetic is because my second cousin has it. If I didn't do that and didn't ask him, then you won't know. So that's interesting. Um, okay. So that leads us on to the next thing, actually. What traits of yours do you feel are genetic or socially constructed? I thought I was kind of just okay at languages, and it turns out that my grandfather on my mother's side spoke five languages fluently without having any lessons, and then I later found out my mum spoke three languages at the age of three. So it turns out that it's probably genetic that that my family are good at languages. I'm not actually fluent in any language. I'm a lazy language learner. Plus, I live on an island in the UK, where most people aren't multilingual. Nevertheless, what traits do you feel are genetic or socially constructed? What I mean by socially constructed is you've learned through society, not through genetics, through experience. And actually, when you think about things, most of the time you think, oh, it's all me, I've learned it from my own experiences. But speak to your family, see what traits they have, and don't feel bad if it's genetic. There was a time where I felt really bad that about the languages and that I'm quite good at analysis, but then obviously Walter, my grandfather, the scientist, he was good at analysis. So you can feel like shit, it's all genetic or whatever. But at the same time, I think you should be proud. Maybe you've got, I don't know, maybe you're good with your hands and you've got that from a grandfather or a great grandfather or a father or a brother or a sister or a mother, and I just think it's fascinating to find out what traits you have that you've inherited. And you can think about that with your children. What have you passed down? I've just had a baby daughter about a year ago, Isabella. Amazing. I'm quite a fast learner at things. Or people have told me I'm a fast learner, and I'm so impressed at how fast she learns things. I mean, she learned to basically crawl after about two months, and she started speaking after three months. And now she's just incredible, really. So it's interesting to look at your children, at what they're picking up, and their interests. Um, she wants to read. She just wants to read basically all day. It will show her stuff on YouTube, but she keeps just saying book, 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 book. So it's interesting. Anyway, enough about me. Um, bum, 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 bum. The next thing. So traits, so you know about traits, you know about your successes. By now, you know what you're good at, or maybe going through those processes. The next thing is, what are you most proud of? What are things that you're proud of? Most proud of is a bit difficult to answer, but what things are you proud of? There might be lots of things you're proud of in life. I don't know if I'm really proud of anything. I suppose no, I don't really like that word actually. So maybe you don't have. What makes you feel good about yourself in terms of things you've done, things you've created, um, things you've said? So yeah, maybe write some things of those down. I think it's quite interesting. If you can also document these things in a video or on a document online that you can share with your family, that could be gold dust in generations to come. They may find things that you've done, things that stressed you out or whatever. Documentation, I think, is super important. I might come to that at the end of the video. Next thing, what are you regretful over? And that can help you to almost guide you in terms of what you don't want to do again, or maybe what you want to do more of in life. I don't tend to have that many regrets, but I think you could also change that question to what are the learnings that you've picked up? What mistakes do you feel you've made in the past that you've learned from, or have you learned from them? So you can think about things in that way as well. Can you change your mind, feelings, emotions, thoughts easily? And if not, why not? That's something some people are really fixed in life, and it's really hard. Those people find life much harder than if you can easily change your mind. So have a think about, what can you change your mind over easily? What can you not change your mind over? And that leads us on to, if things are fixed, what are the fixed things? Are they values? What are your values? And that's okay. If you are fixed to say, you don't want to upset people, or you don't want to kill animals, or whatever it might be, maybe that's a value, and that's okay. There's certain things in your life that you value, and they're called your values, and sometimes they change over time. I used to eat a lot of more meat, and I've tried to eat less, and I used to use loads of plastic, and now I'm trying to use a lot less, because it's one of my values. I believe that we should be using less substances that pollute and cause health damage to ourselves, our families, animals, and the planet. Just one of my values. You could also easily subtract that or change it to say, what are your beliefs? What are your belief systems? And why? Now, all of these things, guys, you might need to spend days, weeks, months, years thinking about. But, I did say this, I would hope this would be one of my most important videos that I've ever made on any of my YouTube channels. Next, what are your principles? What are your parenting principles? What are your money principles in finances? What are your career principles? What are your day-to-day principles? You can think about this in many ways, but yeah. The next thing is, where have you excelled? So I think this is important because then you can learn a lot about yourself. Maybe it's traits, maybe it's strengths, maybe it's you can start thinking about fate or luck or other things. But where in your life do you feel you've excelled and why? Is it all you? Do you get help from other people? And knowing that about yourself, whether it's, that you've done it or whether you've even inheriting something genetic. I mean, I'm so grateful for my family because they've been through things that I guess have made me more resilient and more analytical, and that's helped me in my life. So where have you excelled? I think those success leaves clues, and your successes, your triumphs in your life, whether it's career, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in caring, whether it's in education, whether it's in sport, wherever it is, whether it's being a good friend, whether it's being a good community member, whatever it might be, it's interesting to write down where you think you've excelled. And I have to admit, I haven't done all of this myself. I haven't, I've done a good proportion of these. I've got a good awareness of, but I haven't done it in any depth. And I think I would like to um, create a document and talk about this. This is not the space for me to talk about all about myself, but I think there'd be a lot of value for my family at least, um, to have some of this written down. So I think that's something you could think about as well. Where do you think you can do better? Uh, Now, this is self-defined, and I do definitely suffer from being incredibly hard on myself. Incredibly, I'm definitely my worst, my own worst judge. But try and take a step back and think, where can you do better? There's always places where I think one can improve, and no one's perfect, and I don't think perfection is the goal. Improvement and progress is everything. Is my kind of my mantra. So where do you think you can do better? Just recently, a little story about me. My health hasn't been as good as it could have been. I used to be a top athlete. I used to be a break dancer, and I used to be very, very fit. But over the last 10 years, it's declined, and I've got a personal trainer who's a young chap. He's not expensive, and I think it's really improved my health. My diet's improved, everything's improved. So where do you think you can do better? Also, I don't think I volunteer enough. I definitely want to do that much more. Um, so I think I could do that more. Leading to the next question quite neatly on, how much do you think you help others? Everybody thinks they help people, but write it down. Where do you think you help people in terms of advice? Being a listening ear, helping out financially, helping out, look after kids in a kind of caring way, looking after elderly people, thinking through problems. There's lots of ways to help people, but how much do you think you help people? And can you give some examples? Almost doing an audit of how you've helped people, I think can underline how much you do for other people and whether you could do more or less. There's always strike a healthy balance between helping yourself and helping others. If you help others too much, you neglect yourself. And unfortunately, there's been studies that have linked being too overly understanding and caring and bending over backwards for others, and it can lead to health problems, both mental and sadly physical. So there's always a balance. But anyway, how much do you help others? How many hours per month or minutes per month do you give to other people that are not your family or not a close friend? I mean, you could split this question into how many hours or minutes do you spend helping other people that aren't in your family? And then the next question could be how many hours per month or minutes per month do you help others who are not your friends or your family? And that leads us quite nicely on to how generous do you feel that you are? And if you've done that work in the previous questions, you'll have an idea. Um, and I think if you're giving up an hour or two a week for other people that aren't your friends or family, then that's pretty good. If everybody did that, then we would have a much better society. And of course, if it's 5, 10 hours, then you're doing very well. Do you treat yourself well? Going back and thinking, moving away from helping others for a moment, thinking about you. Do you eat well? Do you sleep well? Do you socialize well? Do you kind of nurture your own love languages? Do you nurture your own communication styles? Do you have enough friends? Do you feel that you have enough friends? Do you feel that you connect well enough with your friends? Do you feel that you treat yourself well enough with uh, how you spend your money, how you spend your time, etc., etc., etc. The next thing is kind of linked. What things or activities or products or services make you feel better so you can do or be more or better? And for me, there were surprising kind of things, small things, which have made, an outsized impact. And I will mention this because I think there's some value in it. And that is the cold showers. I only need a minute of a cold shower, and it really does impact my day. I feel like I can do more and be more and have better outcomes. Also, saunas. I think they make me feel better, reduce pain, and make me feel great. And again, it's only kind of 10 minutes. It's not quite 10 minutes in and out in total because you have to get changed and whatnot, but that's something that makes me feel better. And you might have your own list, write a list of things. Um, be honest with yourself. Do you have any vices? People have vices, and it's okay to have them in a way. But like, if you want to improve, you want to know thyself, you want to write down what are they? What do you do too much of? What do you do too little of? I have some vices. I think people have vices. I I probably am too. I don't do well with risk management, so I'm not a problem gambler, thank God. But I still feel bad that I do some sports betting. So I do probably spend, I don't know, 100 or 200 pounds a year on sports betting. And I consider that a vice. Thankfully, it's in hand. But write down your vices and maybe give yourself a scale, like on a scale of how bad you think it is, 1 to 10. And if you're feeling brave, you can always ask other people. It doesn't have to be someone like a spouse. If it's sensitive, you can always ask a counselor or somebody at a charity that doesn't know you, someone anonymous almost. And you can explain what your vices are and you can explain how it affects your life. And they can give you a score on if they think it's a problem. Next, which is similar, is do you think you have any addictions? Like, I think my sports betting is a vice, but I don't think it's an addiction. Do you have any addictions? What are they? How bad are they? How do you think you can break them? Next, how public or private are you? It's quite important because, if you don't think you're a public person, but then you marry somebody who likes to produce YouTube videos, like me, for example, and you're a very private person, then that might cause you problems and stress. So it's a bit of an extreme example, but I do think content production is kind of going off the scale. Almost every teenager that I know, my nieces and nephews and their friends and whatever, they're producing content. They're being very open. They're on TikTok or they're on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And I think that's a trend that's likely to, probably increase. But nevertheless, about you, how public are you or private? And what things do you feel that you can or can't be public about? And why? You can learn a lot about yourself by thinking about that. Now we're going pretty deep in these next few. So take a deep breath. Um, what do you want to be known for? Um, whilst you're here, as it were. What would you like to be known for? People always have a perception of you. Some people, I get involved with predicting things, and so nowadays, some people want to know what I think about the future. But other people have no idea that and like to forecast things, and they just know me in my work context as a digital marketer. But how do people know you, and how do you want to be known? I think that's a good way of almost finding out what you want to do more of, in a way. Next, what do you want to be remembered for? Now that's pretty deep, and I don't think I've really answered that myself. So I can't claim to know everything about myself, but I'm just giving you frameworks and models and ideas here. I hope you find it useful. But what do you want to be remembered for? By your kids and, in general by wider society, if you're one of those lucky few that actually gets remembered outside of your family. Um, Here's another one. Who do you respect and why? Now, if you do that process, who do you respect and why? You can often find your values, what you value in others, and maybe more broadly. Right. I don't know how many that was. I'm not going to edit this because I'm just I'm not really going to edit it. I feel like it's nice as a block. It's clean. Authenticity is a pretty big value of mine. I want to be I want to feel authentic, and it feels authentic to not. I'm not wearing a suit and tie here. I haven't been clean shaven here because I want to feel authentic, and I don't think it makes a difference. I think there's. I would hope that you feel there's like significant value in this video. I don't think anyone else has done a video like this. I've never seen one like this. And who knows if only 10 people watch it and get a bit of value from it, that's okay as well. I made it really for my baby daughter, for her to watch in the future. Then I thought maybe some other people might find it useful. It's kind of my 40 years of learning on this planet are kind of on most things, models and ideas and things about learning how to improve oneself are in this video. I haven't gone into as much depth as I would have liked, and I haven't really talked about myself in every point. But it's really about you, and I really want you to gain from something from it. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. While I'm still here, of course. Don't know how long I'm going to be here for, of course. No one does. But if you are watching this and you enjoy it, then give it a like. Consider subscribing. This is my personal channel. I'll probably put it on. I may also put it on my investment channel as well, possibly. So I think it's an interesting video. But hope you've enjoyed it, and have a great day.